Justement parce que quelque chose se manifeste qui n'est tout de même strictement inséré.
Jacques Lacan, éminent psychiatre français, a mené tout au long de sa vie une enquête intense sur l'ontologie, la linguistique et la psyché des vérités de la réalité. Sa théorie la plus célèbre, celle des trois registres, propose une dimension radicale de l'existence à laquelle nous ne pouvons accéder directement, seulement à travers une rencontre traumatisante avec l'impossible. Ce réel est une structure insaisissable par l'esprit, où l'existence se configure selon des paramètres défiant la compréhension. L'homme, dans son intérêt infini à aller au-delà de lui-même, pourrait accidentellement créer une brèche catastrophique s'il tentait d'accéder au réel. Dans le réel, il n'y a pas d'identité, pas de figure, seulement l'horreur et l'incertitude.
This is an instructional video intended for proper qualified personnel in the treatment, study, safeguarding, and storage of entities and phenomena, the public scientific disclosure of which would constitute a tearing apart of the fabric of civilization.
Everyday reality refers to the objective and tangible existence of the world around us, independent of our individual perceptions and beliefs. It encompasses all the events, objects, phenomena, and processes that make up the universe, including both the observable and the unobservable. Reality is characterized by its capacity to directly influence and impact our lives, and it can be studied and understood through different disciplines such as physics, biology, psychology, and philosophy. While our interpretations and understandings of reality may vary, reality itself is considered a fundamental and objective concept that exists beyond our individual perceptions.
Dans la théorie de Jacques Lacan, le concept du « réel » ne se réfère pas simplement au physique ou au matériel, mais plutôt à une dimension de l'expérience qui est fondamentalement inaccessible et perturbante. Il ne peut être pleinement capturé par le langage ou les représentations mentales que nous construisons pour donner un sens au monde. Pour l'auteur français, la réalité quotidienne est médiatisée par le langage et les symboles que nous utilisons pour la représenter. Cette médiation symbolique crée une expérience subjective de la réalité qui est façonnée par nos croyances, nos préjugés et nos fantasmes individuels. Le réel, quant à lui, surgit dans nos vies de manière à nous confronter au manque de correspondance entre nos représentations et l'expérience directe. C'est ce qui soutient l'appareil même de l'existence. Le réel se manifeste à travers l'inexplicable, l'incompréhensible et le traumatique, et c'est une force perturbatrice qui trouble notre illusion de contrôle et de domination sur le monde.
To understand what exists in this realm called the real, it is necessary to engage in the highest exercise of mental abstraction. While the real can be perceived through the senses and manifested in concrete objects, this is merely an imaginary way of being processed by the human mind, derived from what can be seen as an image. Due to the physical limitations of the organism and the tendency towards the survival of subjective psychic experience, these phenomena present themselves through a collective and individual imaginary. These supposed entities fracture existence and create an unassimilable gap after traumatic experiences or failures in the known reality. Warning: phenomena of the real may be collectively perceived as everyday objects. However, despite certain reports, although many people may see the exact same thing, certain digital devices would interpret them differently, and some individuals would apprehend them with forms and characteristics that differ from those commonly described. The real could even be interpreted by the mind in the form of a friend, a child, or any other person. Although the identification card is not foolproof, it has reported an effectiveness of 28% compared to other methods that have failed outright. It appears that the real primarily manifests in the human mind through organic entities. Rarely have experiences with inanimate objects been reported. However, the latter have exhibited the most volatile, dangerous, and risky characteristics for maintaining the stability of reality.
Next, practice personnel will be shown a photograph of an entity phenomenon, which has been concluded with 89% certainty to be real. The following image was captured after a fire and explosion at Plastic Factory in Ohio in 1978, where 14 people were fatally injured, and 10 others suffered irreversible lifelong consequences. Personnel are advised to observe the material under the following mandatory conditions. Failure to comply will result in capture and permanent quarantine at the study center facilities. Close doors and windows. Do not observe it between 5 p.m. and 11 p.m., A 70% occurrence of unpredictable effects has been reported during this time range. Do not be in the company of another human, as the real could take the form of your counterpart and transform them into a doppelganger. If you have been diagnosed with a psychotic disorder such as schizophrenia, schizophreniform disorder, major depression, or any type of personality disorder, the probability of experiencing a panic crisis or paranoid crisis has been reported at 45% compared to other mental disorders. If you cannot see anything, do not take your eyes off the image. The real could be in your visual apparatus, affecting an object or physical phenomenon in your surroundings. When the image is removed, close your eyes for 40 seconds.
It happened in Toronto in 1988. The workers of a renowned clothing store called Salvatore Boutique in the city's downtown area reported that, for several weeks, they found a series of mannequins in different positions inside the store. The security cameras captured this, showing these figures in places where they shouldn't be. A few weeks after these curious occurrences, the death of 3 individuals was reported. 2 female employees of the clothing store and a passerby. This all happened on the night of June 10th. The footage of their deaths was captured by internal and external security cameras. Apparently, a figure with strange arms suddenly emerged from some of the store's mannequins and attacked the 2 women inside. A man who happened to be passing by also suffered a fatal fate. The police prohibited the disclosure of the audiovisual material. 3 weeks later, after an apparent calm in the activity of the mannequins, this image forced the permanent closure of the clothing store. Half a year later, the American Security Department requested the intervention of the Canadian government for the study of these mannequins. The team from the Department of Anomalous Reality Investigation cases selected 2 of their top doctors to initiate the study of these strange creatures. They were kept in a laboratory 1 kilometer deep, in a specially contained room for observation purposes for several days. The examination of this mannequin revealed a series of issues, as despite the images showing the presence of muscular material inside it, as well as relatively human-like nervous tissue, some members of the medical team were emphatic in stating that they never saw what the images recorded. They claimed to have only examined an ordinary mannequin made of wood and metal, which they disassembled and found nothing unusual. This event led the department to conduct an exhaustive study of the nature of this entity, as well as all others that exhibited similar characteristics.
Jacques-Alain Miller, gendre et héritier intellectuel de Jacques Lacan, a repris les derniers enseignements du maître, les derniers contours de la théorie sur lesquels il travaillait avant sa mort, afin d'aborder la définition finale du réel, le concept le plus complexe de son travail psychanalytique. Définissant le réel comme quelque chose de différent du sensé, en outre, distinct du savoir. qui fonctionne selon un concept qui ne doit pas être compris comme une simple force, mais plutôt comme un concept divisé en 4 modes d'action, allant du discours au semblant de la réalité, la jouissance, ou la manière dont le réel jouit des corps de la réalité. La jouissance imaginaire est comprise comme un obstacle à la perception de la réalité quotidienne, comme une barrière à l'élaboration symbolique des individus. Cette jouissance imaginaire s'intériorise dans le langage et altère la représentation linguistique du semblant. La signification de la jouissance implique une transposition des images en symboles. Les concepts des semblants quotidiens sont réécrits et la réalité prend des caractéristiques visibles qui lui sont propres, même si elles ne font pas partie de sa nature originale. La jouissance impossible permet la signification de la jouissance. Ce paradigme implique un remplacement de la répression par la défense. Dans la disjonction du symbole originel avec le réel, une brèche effrayante s'ouvre dans l'expérience des individus, entraînant avec elle violence et destruction physique ou psychique. La jouissance fragmentée se fragmente dans l'objet propre de la pulsion psychique des individus, à la fois individuellement et collectivement. Cet objet est la présence d'un vide, d'un creux qui permet, en tant que brèche, l'entrée dans la réalité quotidienne.
Dr. Alexander Samard presents to the scientific community of the Department of Anomalous Reality Investigation Cases the clinical trial. 11 American citizens were chosen in 1991 to be directly exposed to certain objects that were captured due to their high probability of being corrupted by the real. For the safety of the department's personnel, the participants were isolated in heavily shielded rooms within the experimentation area. The objectives of the trial were as follows. First, to study the interaction of the objects with the human mind. Second, to study the physical implications of contact with the real. Third, to study the potential breaches that open up in the everyday world when the real is disturbed. After the tests, the survivors were taken to the annihilation chamber, where they were exposed to the strangest object of the real ever studied: the chamber itself.
The head of the Department of Anomalous Reality Investigation Cases, Dr. Alexander Simard, presents a new reality anomaly that could potentially constitute another instance of the real. This study commenced with isolated reports in the state of Texas from child psychologists, who, as is customary, find themselves dealing with cases of night terrors, phobias, school adaptation, among others. In the realm of psychology, imaginary friends are regarded as a wholly normal phase in the development of a child's psyche. In fact, it is even beneficial for fostering creativity that children invent beings in their imagination. The descriptions and drawings they create of these unreal entities are sometimes vague, but at other times, exceedingly realistic. Throughout the year 1994, numerous psychologists, neurologists, and psychiatrists across Texas began to receive a significant influx of patients, all of whom were children, reporting incidents of uncontrollable crying at night, stories of monsters seemingly attacking them in their sleep, sleep paralysis, as well as bizarre descriptions of some of their imaginary friends. Initially, these cases didn't cause much alarm until they started dramatically multiplying throughout the entire state, exhibiting certain commonalities that, according to the scientific perspective, were entirely inexplicable. Between February and November of 1994, only 15 cases with similar or identical characteristics regarding the description of a particular imaginary friend had been recorded. However, it was only between December 1994 and January 1995 that the number surged to 439. The descriptions from the 439 children during the 2 months of sudden increase had the following commonalities: a tall, dark-colored entity, texture resembling a garbage bag, bright, red eyes, lacking hands, emitting a terrifying and highly unusual noise, desperately attempting to enter through windows. None of the parents had seen it, appears to be named Rupo. Some parents took photographs of what the children were pointing to on certain nights as the presence of Rupo. However, these turned out to be nothing more than garbage bags in the backyards of the houses. In April 1995, the Fort Worth Neuroimaging Center made the decision to select a group of children for examination using the modern functional magnetic resonance imaging procedure, along with magnetoencephalography and single-photon emission computed tomography. The findings resulting from the medical analyses conducted on the children presented an alarming and enigmatic panorama, challenging any conventional explanation. A disconcerting pattern emerged, appearing to impact the occipital lobe and adjacent brain regions, leading to a notably heightened general cerebral activity, surpassing even the levels associated with epileptic episodes. Moreover, anomalies in the form of pointed structures localized within the cranial cavity were identified. Of particular significance is the fact that, in a surprising turn of events, all the children involved in the study maintained a state of vitality. This phenomenon posed an unparalleled enigma within medical practice, as the results seemed to suggest conditions that significantly defied known parameters of life sustenance. These observations challenged the very foundations of organic viability and presented a formidable hurdle to contemporary scientific comprehension. Following the results of these examinations, the Department of Anomalous Reality Investigation Cases took action and placed 3 houses in San Antonio, 2 in Fort Worth, and 5 in Houston under strict control. Various investigative groups stayed in each of these houses for a month, hoping to find analog or digital evidence and means to capture any record of this entity. On several occasions, the presence of the children was requested during the initiation of recordings from the window. The outcomes were nothing short of astonishing. Despite photographic documentation, capturing the creature proved impossible. In fact, it was only visible through cameras, unlike the children who saw it with their own eyes. Nonetheless, a highly significant piece of evidence for the investigation was the acquisition of an astounding phonographic recording of the noise emitted by RUPO. This noise was confirmed by the children after hearing it from the computer. After the photographic and phonographic records, the RUPO creature was not seen again. And the minors who exhibited cerebral alterations were permanently placed under medical supervision of the department led by Dr. Alexander Simard, awaiting their evolution.
En 1980, le docteur Jacques Lacan, à l'âge de 80 ans, effectua l'un de ses rares voyages en Amérique latine. Curieusement, c'est dans cette partie du monde que son œuvre s'est le plus largement répandue. La fondation du champ freudien lui a demandé de participer au congrès annuel en juillet, à seulement 1 an de sa mort, pour qu'il puisse prononcer son dernier discours sur ses formulations concernant le réel. En raison de son état de santé évidemment précaire, il lui fut difficile de donner un cours comme ceux-ci bien connus dans ses séminaires édités par Jacques-Alain Miller. Cependant, cela fut une opportunité majeure pour clore un enseignement qui avait laissé tant d'interrogations en suspens, qui avait ouvert tant de portes à des recherches diverses. Avec son discours inaugural, 4 journées ont été initiées, la plupart avec des auditoires complets, où chaque intervenant a eu la chance d'avoir la présence du célèbre psychanalyste français. Lors de cette réunion, à laquelle ont participé des psychanalystes renommés tels que le Dr Rabinovich, les dernières grandes interrogations entourant le concept de réel, qui jusqu'alors n'avaient pas pu être démontrées, ont été abordées. Cependant, une grande surprise attendait Jacques Lacan lors de la dernière présentation des membres de la Fondation du champ freudien, en collaboration avec des spécialistes vénézuéliens, argentins et brésiliens. Matteux de Souza Bruckner a raconté au psychiatre français l'expédition qui a eu lieu en Amazonie brésilienne en 1979. Lui et un groupe de scientifiques, d'étudiants et de membres de la Fondation se sont enfoncés dans la nature sauvage à la recherche d'un lieu étrange étudié par un groupe indigène. Ils appelaient cet endroit le sanctuaire de Pedrito do Nené, une divinité mythologique de la Macumba liée au monde souterrain. Ce sanctuaire était une sorte de grand étang d'eau noire, bouillonnante, où une vaste quantité d'animaux exotiques avaient plongé. Les indigènes disaient que dans cet étang, on voyait toujours quelque chose de différent, quelque chose d'inexplicable. Quelque chose sur lequel personne ne pouvait toujours être d'accord. Ils l'ont appelé « transmutation ». Les membres de l'expédition de la Fondation ont décidé de prélever des échantillons de cet étang et ont décidé de l'étudier, convaincus qu'il pouvait s'agir d'un réel. Ils ont attendu jusqu'à l'année suivante pour le présenter explicitement au docteur Jacques Lacan lors de la grande conférence de clôture. Le 15 juillet, lors de la dernière section de la conférence, l'équipe de Souza Bruckner a apporté une énorme boîte métallique dans l'une des salles, contenant à l'intérieur les échantillons prélevés dans la mare d'eau en Amazonie. En raison de l'importance de cette apparition inattendue, il a été décidé de clôturer la grande conférence dans la salle principale de la Fondation, où le docteur Lacan a été invité à examiner le contenu de la boîte. À l'intérieur, il y avait un énorme échantillon du contenu du bassin stagnant. Apparemment, au fil du temps, une forme de vie y avait prospéré. Du moins, c'est ce que le docteur Jacques Lacan a déclaré avoir vu, car un autre membre de l'équipe a noté que l'eau prenait une teinte argentée avec de petites pierres qui semblaient flotter. Le docteur Lacan est resté à examiner l'un des spécimens pendant au moins 30 minutes alors que Matteux de Souza Bruckner présentait devant lui. La transcription originale du discours de clôture de Lacan a été entre les mains du groupe français cette affaire-là pendant quelques années. Jacques-Alain Miller, chargé de la compilation de l'œuvre du docteur Lacan, avait envisagé de l'inclure dans les séminaires imprimés sur papier. Cependant, malgré sa décision de l'intégrer comme discours de clôture du séminaire 27, aux côtés des derniers cours du psychanalyste français, le groupe cette affaire-là n'a pas accepté de céder les droits.
In the same way I mentioned in my inaugural speech, that 80 years of my life have passed for me to come to Latin America, especially here in Venezuela, to share my latest findings with my most loyal, but hitherto unknown students has been a momentous experience. This is not the closing speech I had originally planned. because after the memorable and highly significant presentation by Dr. Matthias de Souza Bruckner, I am truly astonished. It is necessary to make a turn in my final presentation. You, who are here, have clearly witnessed that my research work on what I have termed the register of the real has been, even for myself, a shocking reality, to use a redundancy. The Mobius position of the phenomenon that Dr. Souza Bruckner has exposed encapsulates the most significant of my topological propositions, which, as you already know, have marked the final shift in my classes. I have been brought here, from the depths of the wildest Brazil, a substance that Dr. Diana Rabinovich had already proposed certain conjectures about in terms of the characteristics of Euler-Poincaré's surfaces. However, I must say that here we are in the presence of what I have called an intricacy of jouissance of a Riemann surface. Let us see how this object, apparently so simple, liquid, and obscure, is capable of eliciting the most varied experiences when symbolically apprehended in what I call the register of the imaginary, from the alienated image to the perforated discourse of the social, as crossed by the first signifier within the toric figure. I have noticed that, just as I have seen it, here is a figure with a pair of eyes. However, some have attested in this very container silver and gold gemstones. A couple of students have disagreed with my word and yours, arguing that what they have seen on this stage are nothing more than books with red covers. This is precisely what I have theorized throughout my life. The real. It is that plane of Mobius surfaces that can access this symbolic plane outside of the same sociocultural symbol. At my age, and with my health condition, my intellect will not allow me to advance in the delineations of this topological phenomenon. I have left the progress of my theory in capable hands. Thank you very much for your dedication to this Congress dedicated to the discussion of my work. Be diligent in your investigations. I will declare not only this grand event, but also my own school devoted to the register of the real closed.